Morning, everybody, and welcome to the South Hams Executive Committee on the 17th of September. The first item on the agenda is the minutes. Executive members, do I have your approval for the minutes being a correct record?
Agreed.
It's the last meeting. Yes, at agenda item 1. Thank you very much. I think that's agreed, Janice.
Yeah, all agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you, Nita. Noted.
Thank you. Item 2, urgent business. I have no urgent business to bring forward. Division of the agenda. It is likely that we will have to divide the agenda for the last item on the agenda. Declarations of interest. Members are invited to declare any personal or disclosable pecuniary interests, including the nature and extent of such interests, that they may have in any item to be considered at this meeting. Members, do you have any interest to declare?
No.
No.
Chairman.
No. No.
Any other members, do you have any interest to declare? I'll take silence as no. So the next item is a public question time. I have not been notified of any public questions. Janice, could you confirm there are no public questions, please?
Yes, Leader, I can confirm there are no public questions.
Thank you very much. So the next item on the agenda is item 6, the forward plan. Executive members, do you have any questions on the forward plan?
No, Leader.
No, Leader.
Other members, would you like to raise any questions on the forward plan? If so, could you do so in the chat box now, please? Okay, there doesn't seem to be anything coming up. Right, reports of other bodies. We have, first of all, the minutes of the overview and scrutiny panel, which was held last Thursday. And there is a recommendation at the top of page 15 that with effect from the 1st of April this year, the executive be recommended to adopt the Homelessness Strategy Action Plan 2020-21 as attached at Appendix 3 of the of their report, of their agenda. Members, are you happy to adopt that strategy?
So moved, Chairman.
Thank you.
Happy to move or happy to support.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. That seems to be agreed. And then moving on to the minutes of the joint meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel held on Thursday, the 3rd of September. I beg your pardon, the last executive meeting was not held last week, it was held sometime before, but the joint meeting was held last week. And in that, there are the recommendations regarding the recovery programme, which we should be dealing with, and the recommendations of the budget, which we shall also be dealing with. So those will come up later in the meeting. And I don't think there are any other recommendations in that report. So we should now be able to move on to item 8, which is the recovery plan to the COVID-19 crisis. And we'll just have a second while we all get on to the other report because it is elsewhere for us. Right, members, has everybody got that report up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you have, I'll introduce it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Right. So agenda item 8 is the response and draft recovery and renewal plan. Executive members, surprisingly, as this plan is owned and being led by us, this is the first opportunity we have had to input to the plan. We hope this will be obvious from the way we had led the introductory sessions and requested input from other members. The last report to the Joint Scrutiny Committee made this clear at paragraph 10.2 of that report, where it said, the work will continue to be led by members of the executive under the themes set out in the strategic framework. In view of this, I'm not sure that recommendation 7 in the present report under consideration, which came forward from the Joint Overview and Scrutiny Committee, is appropriate. And I should be requesting that the chairman of these two committees agree that it should be withdrawn from the recommendations going to council. Similarly, I think it would be impossible to arrange a talk from a relevant officer from Team Devon, because Team Devon is a concept rather than a concrete reality. It has long existed as an informal and sometimes more formal officer groups across the county, and during the emergency has strengthened and now includes regular meetings of all the chief executives and leaders of Devon County Council and the relevant districts in the county area. Plymouth City and Torbay do not form part of this, though, as you know, we work closely with Plymouth on a number of issues, including the JLP and all its ramifications. I therefore ask that a better description of what Team Devon is and does should be included in the members' bulletin this weekend, so as to avoid having to hold an almost impossible to hold informal meeting. I shall similarly be requesting to the two chairmen that this recommendation is withdrawn, and we shall see what happens. We would like to thank the Overview and Scrutiny and DEAN Joint Committee for their input. It's now our turn to have some input, and I shall shortly be inviting my fellow executive members to have their say in line with paragraph 1.3 of the short report on this item which we have before us, which accompanies the longer report which went to the Joint Scrutiny Committee and the table of suggested actions. Members, first of all, are there any questions?
No. No.
I've got one comment in the comment bar, but I don't think there are any questions, and there appear then to be no questions. So I am going to move the recommendations, which are to note everything. But I personally, anyway, will not be endorsing 6 and 7, although I'm noting them. Can I have views from other members of the executive, please?
Seconded, Leader.
Thank you.
And I agree with your view about items 6 and 7 in the recommendations.
Thank you. Right, we'll move into the debate then. Could I have views from the other members of the executive on those two recommendations?
Julie, I fully support what your comments have been. I don't see any reason why we should have a member working group set up. It'll just end up being a talking shop.
Right, executive, are there any questions, please?
No, Chairman.
No, sorry, do you want to make any comments? We're into the debate now. Because if not, I shall go to other members. If you've got nothing to say, I see that Councillor Birch would like to speak. Councillor Birch, do you want to come in?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. As far as item 6 is concerned, then that's a recommendation to council, so I won't make any further comment on that. I'll leave that to a later date. As far as Team Devon is concerned, that was a request from the joint. That was a request, or was a requirement of the joint meeting, that there be a meeting set up with a Team Devon. And perhaps I could just repeat the reason why that was requested. Is that I think at least 15 items within the recovery plan make reference to action being taken by Team Devon. And in other words, they are critical parts of our plan, are relying on what appears to be an organisation that is not in a position to come and address us on how they're going to action or how they're going to achieve the aims that are set out in our action plan. So it does concern me that there does appear to be an admission that Team Devon is just an expression as opposed to a body that can take action, and it brings into doubt the impact or how actions are going to be achieved if there is not an actual body having responsibility for doing that. So I would invite you at the full council meeting next week to amplify or explain how those items within the action plan or the recovery plan, how they're going to be achieved by Team Devon if such an organisation is not even in a position to send a person or officers to speak to us on how they're going to achieve those items listed in the plan. I mean, that does concern me. So perhaps full council could have a full explanation as to how those items that are listed against Team Devon are going to be achieved. Thank you.
Councillor Birch, I have already asked that an explanation be put in the bulletin this weekend, and I will further ask that there are some specific examples of who in Team Devon will, or which group will be responsible for the various for some of the action plans that are outlined there, so that maybe you will have more belief that there are actually bodies out there which are part of Team Devon which can do this for us. And indeed, the executive will be driving these actions, so we shall make sure that they happen, just like any other plan. But
Excuse me, can I just come back to it? Because can I just ask then as to why this was not explained to us at the joint meeting? There was quite a discussion on the matter of Team Devon and its responsibilities that led up to this, led up to item 7. And yet there was no explanation given by any member of the executive or any officer as to the state of play that you've just explained to us.
I think our chief executive would like to come in at this point and explain to you why or how, but we certainly weren't asked to explain it. We were not personally asked at all. Andy Bates, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, just in terms of response, Councillor Birch, if you recall, there was a discussion, quite a discussion about this at the previous committee. I did actually provide some advice to that committee about Team Devon. At the time, I explained that Team Devon was not a being or a thing, but a construct. I did give that advice to members at the time. Can I also, though, Chair, offer some help on this? I think the issue is that within the report and within the appendix, officers have used a shorthand by using the words Team Devon. In actual fact, what this refers to, as you've already said, is a number of different things, including the Devon Economic Recovery Plan. So what we can do is we can go back through the detail of that within the appendices in advance of council, and we can explain what each of those things are rather than using that collective. So I hope that will help you. I hope it will help Councillor Birch as well, and it will help other members to understand exactly how these things will be delivered. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Birch, does that satisfy you for the moment?
I'll wait and see.
All right. Right. Well, in that case, I'd like to move this on and move on to paragraph 1.3 of the report, and invite executive members.
Chairman, I have put on the pad I'd like to speak.
I'm sorry, Councillor Baldry. Yes, please do.
The chief executive has said what I was planning to say. He did explain at that meeting about this loose concept which is called Team Devon, but the question, and I, like Councillor Birch, will wait and see what appears in the members' bulletin about the purpose of Team Devon. Are any elected members involved in Team Devon?
Yes, I am directly involved as the chair of Devon Districts and attend the Leaders and Chiefs meeting once a fortnight it is at the moment.
Well, as our representative leader, would you be prepared to report back if required on what has been happening in specific pieces of work which Team Devon have undertaken?
Yes, indeed. I'd be happy to, but it's mainly been on the business and economic side at the moment.
Yeah, I did say if requested.
Yes, if requested, certainly, yes. Right, so shall we move on to paragraph 1.3 and a discussion of the executive's priorities for the recovery plan. I'm just going to start briefly first and then I'll come back in more detail later. But I do think that improving the council's reputation is key to all this, and also working at all times for the well-being of residents and businesses in our district. And on that note, I'd like to invite Councillor Bastone to tell us about his priorities for his section of the recovery plan, which is business and the economy. Councillor Bastone.
Thank you, Leader. Our emerging priority for business and economy is to understand and represent key business sectors in the South Hams to facilitate better business for all. And by doing that, to create business to business links to further best practice, provide a channel to lobby and influence, and to improve access for businesses to government and other support where the council is best placed to do so. We would also wish to align our commercial strategy and land assets to deliver projects with multiple objectives, such as regeneration, revenue, housing and employment. We would also want to take an active role in the promotion of tourism in the South Hams, working with partners and stakeholders across Devon. Work with partners to support the evolution of the High Street, creating place, fostering change and putting the community first. And this priority we put in because of how the village shops have supported their communities through the COVID-19. And finally, to work with partners to support green recovery and the principle of building back better. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bastone. I'm going to continue because theme 2 is place and environment, and that comes under me. I would like to put forward that we protect and enhance the beauty and character of the built and natural environment in the South Hams, that we sustain and support our vibrant towns and villages through the delivery of the JLP and by putting housing for the community first, and that we support a sustainable and resilient South Hams in line with our commitments on climate change, including the identification of nature corridors and land use strategies to support our biodiversity objectives. And moving on from that, I would like to invite Councillor Hopwood and Councillor Hawkins to put forward their themes on residents, communities and partnerships. I'm not sure, are you both going to do this, or is just Councillor Hawkins?
Can I suggest Councillor Hopwood start, being a lady, and then I follow on?
Okay, fine, all right.
Well, Leader, I've sort of rolled all mine into one because I've got about...
So you want to do communications with it? That's fine.
And
that's fine.
accommodation, please, because that's mine as well.
Oh yes,
now.
because you've got that. Yes, all right. That comes. That's in Councillor Baldry's service recovery and redesign. But yes, you put your part forward, and Councillor Hawkins can pick up the what's left.
All right, thank you, Leader. Members will remember the effects T18 had, particularly on our community, because it was very inward facing and not thinking about who we were actually working for, South Hams taxpayers. However, when the beast from the east set in, we were already able to carry on business as usual through remote working, and the same happened when we were hit with this awful pandemic. The council immediately upped sticks. The offices were closed and everybody worked from home. Those phoning in didn't know where the officer on the other end of the phone was, nor did they care, as long as they got an answer to a query or the help they required. In March this year, members also had to do what until that time was alien to most of us. We had to use modern technology in a way we had never used it before, and were attending meetings through Zoom, Skype and other platforms. Members adapted well, and I have to say, if the pandemic hadn't hit us, then it may have taken years to go down this route, and many of us, including myself, would have used online platforms showing a video of us speaking, kicking and screaming. It's amazing how quickly one can adapt when there is no choice. T18 is now done, and we need to concentrate on communication with our partners and communities and be more outward thinking in the way we connect with those who either use our services or whom we can team up with to be more effective voice further up the chain. Sorry, leader, someone's knocking at my door and it started the dog off. Sorry. One of the joys. What have we learned with regards to communications? Well, I have learned that we don't particularly need Follerton House. What we need to do is combine working remotely with appropriate council meetings being held within our district. We need to think about what is on an agenda, and if it is a big issue for a ward, then we could meet in that ward so the community can listen by either attending, which some feel more comfortable with, or via an IT platform. Going out to residents as a council shows we truly care. It is definitely beneficial to have some meetings, such as full council face-to-face, but smaller meetings could be held in towns and villages throughout the district, thus helping with the income of those facilities. As a council, we need to become more normal in the way we communicate. We need to ditch the council speak and dull graphics and become more modern looking in a way that grabs residents' attention. I'd like to see a residents' forum reinstated so we can go directly to a group of people who are keen to have an input into what we as a council are doing, should we need to consult. Excuse me a minute, Chairman.
She's nearly got My Little Puppy starting to bark.
Sorry about this. One of the hazards of remote meetings, everybody. Councillor Hotwell will be back with us in a second.
Councillor Hawkins, is your new puppy within sight of the camera?
I can go and get her in a few minutes for you.
Thank you.
She's asleep on the settee at the moment.
Ah, that's what puppies do.
We've got 7 puppies.
They do other things as well, and we've just had new carpets.
Oh, God.
Go on, let's have a look again, Joe.
7.
Joe?
Our dogs had puppies, so these guys are 4.5 weeks old. And the mum got ill last week, so I'm now also feeding puppies.
Oh my goodness me.
Hello.
Councillor Hotwood's back. Can we?
Sorry, leader. I pressed the red button instead of mute. Sorry, I apologise.
Don't worry.
We need to use social media more and make sure we post, especially on Facebook and Instagram. When, for instance, a locality officer is doing a playground inspection or checking bottle banks, let residents know this is happening in their ward. If tree works are being done or the road swept, we need to be telling residents this is what we are doing. We need to be proud of how we are working. We need simple messaging that looks interesting and tackles real issues instead of the corporate messaging we use at the moment, which is of little interest to many. There are so many things this council does as a day job within towns and parishes, but we are rubbish at telling people. This needs to change and can be done now. This is a really quick win. We need to be proud of what we do as a council and tell residents we are actually working within their communities. Throughout COVID, the community spirit within South Hams was second to none. Existing groups were invaluable and adapted quickly and efficiently to help where help was needed. What was even more amazing were the community groups that sprung up. We need to build on the groups that have continued, although I realise some popped up to help and have now popped down again as they have served their purpose. We need to map out the groups that are continuing and see how we can link in with them and help them if needed. We could use these groups to help us identify and support the most vulnerable in our community to achieve better outcomes and make sure work isn't duplicated. I think this recovery plan is the start of modernising the ways in which this council is outward facing. We have proved we are capable of embracing change, and the momentum and community spirit within the district needs to be captured and built on. We need to put what we have learned over the past months into a new corporate strategy expressed in clear terms without council speak. I, for one, am excited about what lies ahead in terms of better communication and a closer working relationship with all of the residents and partnerships within the South Hams. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hopwood. Councillor Hawkins, follow that, please.
It's a very hard act to follow, but I agree entirely with what Nikki has been saying and what Nikki's vision is for the future. First of all, I would like to thank all the staff at South Hams District Council and all the volunteers in our communities for all the hard work and effort that they have put in during this period. They all stepped up to the mark, and I think many of us were amazed how quickly our communities were self-helping themselves so quickly and efficiently. No one could have envisaged COVID. We certainly could never have done that. I'm sitting in my kitchen in Kingsware. You're sitting in Firlston. I have got 3 computers on at the present moment, and if anybody had asked me that in November or December of last year, I would have been absolutely terrified and said no way. I've been a councillor at South Hams for over 20 years, and I agree with Nikki. T18 changed the feeling that South Hams Council had before. It was well respected and cared for by its residents, and I think T18 had to happen because of austerity, but it did lose an awful lot of our South Hams soul from the past. As I say, I've been a councillor for over 20 years, and my reason for being a councillor is I care passionately about the South Hams, and I love the area in which I was brought up. And the health and well-being role for executive for myself certainly gives me the opportunity to put something back into our South Hams. As I say, COVID has changed the world forever. Things I never thought I would see, we have now all experienced in our different ways with residents and knowing people who have been taken ill. South Hams needs to be there for all our residents and all our communities. We must ensure our services are there as and when our residents need them, quickly, efficiently and easy to access. During the months ahead, we will need even more such things. And my main objective is simple, that the South Hams District Council is there for our residents. I want to establish, and I agree with Nikki, but I would have put residents' health and well-being forum together. That meets to share the experiences from our community groups that we have learnt over the last few months, build on those, and to ensure that we've got sustainability for whatever happens in the future, whether the second lockdown comes or whatever that needs to be. We need to work with our town and parish councils to build up community sustainability and self-help. Health and well-being is a central thread of all the services at South Hams District Council, and very, very important. Housing, leisure, etc. Benefits and grants, we need to ensure that when those residents that are being made unemployed or need our help and assistance are there quickly, efficiently and stress-free as much as possible. So I look forward to the challenges of the future, and I look forward to working with our stakeholders, our community groups and my fellow councillors at South Hams Council, because at the end of the day, politics is not the main issue. We must serve our communities. Thank you, G. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Baldry, I think it's your turn next, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. If I'm having a competition with Councillor Hawkins, I'm currently working off 4 different devices rather than the 3 he is working off. It has been a challenge for us and for members, and I think we need to look on the positives, and I will repeat some of what's been said already. The way in which the communities in my ward rose to the problems was tremendous, and the number of volunteers we had is enormous. And I think just taking account of the VE Day celebrations, if that's the right word, marking the VE Day around the community is an example of how communities enormously came together as a result of this. Clap for Carers is another example where we could hear sounds coming from all over my village as people made noise in support of the carers. So moving on to the areas for which I had the theme to deal with, can I first of all say that the way in which we have conducted the workshops and listened to all members, I congratulate the officers on the way in which they have brought that all together in the report. I think taking account of what every member said and the agreement which arose from those workshops. So congratulations to Mr. Powell and all the team on what they have done. In the themes which I recovery and redesign, as has already been said, some of those were outside my portfolio area. And so moving forward, we need from those themes to include and bring together the localities review, I think, and that needs to come to a conclusion. Councillor Hopwood is dealing with the accommodation side of things, but we also need to look at the ways of working, not for members, because we are of secondary importance, but for members of staff. Wherever possible, perhaps we ought to consider people working from home, just bringing them into meetings where it is operationally sensible to do so. But I'm sure we all recognise there are some members of staff working from home in facilities which are not suitable, either because they do not have a decent internet signal or because I know at least one member, and probably a member of staff and perhaps others, who have to move elsewhere in order to work, in order to get a signal, and others will work in inappropriate accommodation. It is not suitable, I don't think, for members of staff to have to work with other people around them or operating off the end of their bed. So we need to take account of working from home. It's not suitable for everyone, but as a general principle, I think that is the right thing to happen. Within my portfolio area, I wish to take forward the need to enhance the condition of the street and beach scene in the South Hams for the benefit of residents, businesses and visitors. We have had problems over the summer with, in particular, the clearing of waste and other things from the beach. And I am responsible, and I wish to take on board the efficient delivery of the forthcoming refuse and recycling changes. And finally, I regard it as a target which I am determined to meet, to increase the recycling rates across the district. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baldry. I am going to come back now because theme 5 is communications and governance. Now, Councillor Hopwood has already dealt with communications, but on the governance side, governance includes the way we work and includes delivering good quality services. So I've been trying to get a review of the Constitution for some time, but I really feel that it is time now to make it more accessible and user-friendly, both to members and members of the public who want to see how we work and what we do. And it should reflect current and future practice, which at the moment it doesn't entirely do. So I shall be promoting a review of the Constitution. We must ensure that we deliver good services at good value at all times. Now, I know this was one of the chief movers of T18, but we need to take that forward and improve on it so that we are not missing anybody out, we're not missing any service out, and that at all times we are seen as a good council by our public out there. We should also seek wider joint working and collaborative opportunities that do not require structural changes. Now, at the beginning of this council, I did promote that as well. I said that during this council there would be no question of West Devon and South Hams coming together as one council, and that remains. But in the spirit of Team Devon and working better to save money and to work more efficiently, I am happy to seek any collaborative opportunities that arise that would enable us to do that. And moving on to the last theme, which is theme 6, financial stability. I have only one objective here, and that is to ensure the future financial stability and sustainability of the council. That is key to everything we do. I think we owe a huge debt to Lisa Buckle, our Section 151 officer, and her team for all the work they have done through the pandemic. And I extend that to all the staff as well, not just them in particular, but it is particularly the financial side, the dealing with all the government grants that have been sent out, and keeping the show on the road financially, which has been enormously important to this council and which they have done so well. So thank you very much to them. Now, as a result of everything that my executive has said this morning as their objectives for the recovery plan, and Councillor Hopwood mentioned a new corporate strategy, I would like to add 2 proposals to the 7 we already have to this report. That officers start, I think Mr. White's got these, so he can put them up, thank you. That officers start working on the development of a new corporate strategy with a view to adoption in May 2021. That is because I don't think any of my executive members were happy with the corporate strategy that we inherited from the last council. We felt it had been fitted round themes that had not been developed by members, but had been developed a lot more by officers. And we have never really managed to move ourselves off the ground with it. So I think it's important that we do what is being proposed in recommendation 8. And recommendation 9 is the governance theme be initially covered by the leader working with officers, with changes being dealt with through the appropriate decision-making process. Now that is that will be changes to the constitution mainly, and the appropriate decision-making processes will be that it goes through the audit committee and council as normal, but that's the wording I'm proposing. So first of all, do I have a seconder for those 2 proposals?
Seconded, Leader.
Thank you. And then could we have any questions and debate on those 2 proposals, please? Councillor Baldry, do you want to speak again? I've just seen something flash up in the box. Was that you or not?
I was first of all seconding your additional recommendations 8 and 9.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Councillor Bastone opened his mouth quicker than I did, but I would like to speak on them if I may.
Yes, of course you may, Councillor.
Are you just taking questions or comments?
I'm happy to have both actually on them, because I'm not sure there are any questions.
Right, well, really I'm in support of both recommendations. The corporate strategy, which, as you say, we inherited, was very much a top-down exercise. I have thought a lot of it is at best outdated and at worst inappropriate. So I'll be very pleased to have a new corporate strategy, also taking account of the fact that you have a largely new executive and we have a new council. So I think I'm certainly in support of having a corporate strategy which is more appropriate than the existing one. And on the question of the governance, those of people who are into this sort of thing and reading constitutions are pointing out to me, the new members, that there is a lot of inconsistencies and nonsense in it. So I think the time is overdue for it to be revised. So I support both recommendations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baldry. I should just perhaps add that the proposal is that the new corporate strategy to be adopted in May 2021 will cover the last 2 years of this council and the first year of the next council, so that the next council is not bound by the previous council, except insofar as they need to get themselves organised and get themselves a new corporate strategy. So that is the point of the 3-year time frame on it. Any other members of the executive, do you want to comment at all?
No.
Right, nothing there. Any members want to speak on this? Any wider members? Okay, nothing's coming up in the box. Well, in that case, executive, shall we vote on all these recommendations, which are for noting at this stage to go forward to council? Is everybody in agreement? First of all, let's hear if anybody objects to any of them. I'll take that as being agreement on all of them. Is that so? Would you just like to say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I think that deals with that item, and we will move on to item 9 on the agenda, which is the budget. I'll just give you a moment to change over papers. Right, has everybody managed to change papers successfully? Everybody there? Well, I have to say that it really gives me no pleasure to have to present this amended budget at the half-year stage, but I would like to thank officers for all the hard work they've put into getting it together. Calm, excellent and appropriate advice we have received from Lisa Buckle, Pauline Henshaw and our new Chief Executive, Andy Bates. The emergency has not been kind to our finances, and whilst we have, or can reasonably expect to have, a good deal of money from central government, at the moment it will nothing like fully reimburse us for all the losses we have either suffered or agreed to undergo to enable businesses to restart in the district after lockdown. This report is substantially the same as discussed at the joint overview and scrutiny meeting last week, where I gave a full introduction, and so I don't think I need to do that again. The additions are recommendation 5 and the relevant paragraphs about it at 1819 and section 11 in the report. And that is to deal with the changes in the discretionary business grants policy due to the late changes in the regulations by the government to enable payments to be made to town and parish councils. There are further small additions regarding the deliberations at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and their approval of the 10 options, and these are noted at paragraphs 1.3 and 5.14. And there are some additional words around the recommendation in the medium-term financial strategy at Council, which was accompanied by a sensitivity analysis on why the unearmarked reserve should remain at a minimum of 1.5 million. But ideally should be at 1.9 million, and therefore one of the recommendations is that the balance should be restored as soon as possible. Finally, there is a schedule at Appendix 1 of all the earmarked reserve balances as they will stand after this budget has been enacted. So, first of all, are there any questions?
No, Leader.
None from members of the executive. Thank you. Do any other members have any questions on this budget? It is substantially as you discussed last week, so I'm not expecting anything huge. Right. Well, I therefore suggest that I move the recommendations 1 to 5 at the head of this agenda item. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you. Is there any need for any debate on this? Does anyone want to debate anything? Keith, Councillor Baldry, you'd like to speak?
Yeah, yes, I previously discussed my position with you. Normally, I would like to have moved an amendment to the budget proposals. Unfortunately, I have ascertained that I don't have a seconder for that. So I will be voting against the leader, and I shall give very brief reasons which we can amplify at the full council a week today. I am unhappy, leader, about the level remaining of our unearmarked reserves as a result of this. I am told that those unearmarked reserves are for if an emergency arises or for a rainy day. As far as a rainy day is concerned, we are in a crisis now. If anything, we're in the middle of a tropical storm. We need to maintain our services to the public as much as we possibly can. When I question why we need to keep these level of reserves, I am told they are for unforeseen contingencies. By definition, those are unforeseen. But the examples I've been given are things like flooding and sea erosion, are things for which Southampton would not be responsible, provided the money will come from the Environment Agency or for Devon County Council. I know it is a comfortable feeling to have £1.5 million in reserves which are not earmarked for anything else, but I think we need to look beyond the comfort zone. We need to say, if that money remains at that level, what is the result of it? And the result of it, if you read the budget report, is that we will be we will be spending less money on the play parks for our children. We will not be supporting our businesses to the level which I would like us to be supporting our businesses. And above all, we will not be having the amount of money available for affordable homes. For those reasons, Chairman, Leader, I cannot support the budget as it stands, and I will vote against at this executive meeting. And unless anything untoward occurs, probably do the same at next Thursday's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry. I shall be asking for something again to be put in the bulletin at the weekend, explaining exactly what unearmarked reserves should be used for and why we need to maintain the balance. Now, as regards flooding, if properties are internally flooded, and that could occur in this district if there was a surge, a tidal surge, in a number of our coastal villages and towns, we, the District Council, would be responsible for immediate relief of the flooded properties, and that would include clearing out flooded goods and finding somewhere for the occupants of those houses to stay. That would be an immediate and quite a large cost, and would be required with immediate effect. In other words, a cash flow balance is useful in that sort of emergency. This present emergency is an emergency, and I wouldn't disagree with you on that. But as you can see, we are having time to collect ourselves and to put through a budget. If a disaster occurs, you don't have the benefit of that time to put things through the usual channels, and that is why you need a cash flow balance which is substantial. There are other occasions when that could happen and the balance could be needed, and I'm sure that Mrs. Buckle will mention those when she puts this paper round at the weekend. But I hope that all members will take note of the paper that she is going to send you, so that you understand exactly what an unearmarked reserve is and why the balance should be kept substantial. And I think we do have evidence from other Devon districts, and indeed districts around the country, that it is a prudent thing to do. And while SIPFA no longer recommends a minimum balance and leaves it up to the Section 151 officer of each council as to what that should be, this is very much in line with what the old SIPFA recommendations would have been. As for using money that would have gone to businesses, play parks and the rest, the play parks budget has been there for a long time, and I would suggest that any play parks that would have come forward for funding could have come forward in the 3 or 4 years that funding has been available, and I know that many have availed themselves of the opportunity. As for the businesses, we still have 3.5 million in the business rates reserve, which is set aside for businesses, as I understand it. And similarly, we still have amounts that are set aside for affordable housing. And now we have the community housing programme, that is on its own self-sustaining financial system now, which we should be discussing later in the agenda. So thank you for your contribution. I'm sorry for that reason you don't feel you can
Right.
vote for.
Leader, I don't think it is constructive to engage in a ping pong about the various points you have raised now. That is for next week's meeting. But just to say, I cannot be expected to take into account a paper from Mrs. Buckle, which I have yet to see. And for the play parks, I'm sure Councillor McKay is listening. If he's at this meeting, he is having serious trouble getting funding for a play park in his ward.
Okay. Thank you for that. Yes, I agree, but I'm just promoting this paper so that all members read it carefully before the council meeting next week. Right. Does anybody else want to comment on the budget? Because if not, I will ask members, taking into account that Councillor Baldry has already said that he's not going to vote for it, but are the other of you going to vote for it? I am going to vote for the recommendations 1 to 5.
Happy to support, Leader.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy to support.
Thank you.
Yes, in favour.
Thank you. Well, that's by my count, that's 4 votes to 1. Can you confirm that? Yeah.
I can confirm that, Nita.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that the budget is passed with the recommendations to go forward to council. So the next item on the agenda is signing up to the Coastal Concordat, which is agenda item 10. So let's get that up, everybody. And the recommendation here is to agree to sign up to the Coastal Concordat with immediate effect. This paper concerns all members in coastal wards. The Coastal Concordat provides a framework with which the separate processes for the consenting of coastal developments in England can be better coordinated. The benefits of working under the principles of the Concordat for applicants and regulators include upfront signposting for the applicant to the right agencies, reduced duplication of evidence requirements. Sorry, I've just lost my next piece of paper. Streamlined regulatory processes. One body may take a lead on the environmental impact assessment, habitats regulations assessment and/or marine conservation zone assessments. Transparency and consistency of advice, time and cost savings for regulators, authorities and applicants, and it meets the commitments in the 25-year environment plan. There will be a small number of planning applications which will trigger the use of the Coastal Concordat, and accordingly the efficiency savings will be minimal to the council. There is no apparent benefit to the council, and the principles of the Concordat are sensible and would assist with a better passage through the regulatory system for applicants. There is also no financial cost to signing the Concordat or additional resource implications. At 5.2, it states that in advance of signing up to the Concordat, council officers will be provided with basic training about the principles and requirements of working under it and the regulatory functions of other bodies. I'm therefore I'd be grateful for reassurance from officers that this training has been given as the Concordat is effective immediately. Is Mr. Brooke present? Can he give me that assurance?
Morning, Leader, Councillor Pearce. Yes, I am here. I was listening. Yes, I believe that is the case.
Thank you very much. Okay. So I have no hesitation now in recommending that we sign up to this Concordat, which will hopefully provide an easier process for any applicants having to contact multiple agencies over a planning application on the coastline.
Second.
So I move, thank you, seconding the recommendation. Do I have any questions on this? Or any debate? Is there any debate? Does anybody want to enter into a debate? I mean, I think it's fairly obvious what it's all about.
No, Leader, I don't. Thank you.
So are you happy to agree to the recommendation?
Agree.
I agree.
Right, thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next item, which is for Councillor Bastone, and this is the Ivybridge Regeneration project at item 11 on the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Bastone.
Thank you, Chairman. If I could move the recommendation.
Seconded.
Thank you. The June 2020 executive made a recommendation to spend a further £65,000 from the Economic Regeneration Earmark Reserve on commissioning further work on the Ivybridge Regeneration project. Since this time, the project team have been progressing work to obtain advice in relation to planning, ecology, buildability, the car parking regime, lease arrangements, and also taken Treasury management advice. Additionally, the team have commissioned an economic assessment of Ivybridge Town Centre as requested by Ivybridge Town Council to understand the implications of the proposed Oldie within the town centre. Initial findings of the economic assessment are positive and indicate an Oldie will be good fit for Ivybridge, acting as an anchor to residents who currently leave the town to fulfil their shopping needs. There has also been progress with the proposed car parking regime. Further to legal advice regarding the use of automatic number plate recognition, it is now proposed a mix of 90-minute free parking that will be available to Oldie shoppers alongside a long stay car park for other users of the town, with a range of benefits available, including all-day parking and some permits. Over the next few months, the project team plans to continue work to understand the key project risks, as well as engage with key stakeholders to consult on progress to date, with a view to returning to the executive in December 2020 with adequate information to make a recommendation as to whether to proceed to the planning, tender and ultimate construction stage of the Ivybridge Regeneration Scheme. Thank you, Chairman.
It's all gone quiet.
Chairman, you're muted, that's what it is.
I beg your pardon. Councillor Hawkins, you've got a question.
The question, I'm in full support of this. I think it's a really good town centre regeneration project for Ivybridge. I think it certainly will bring extra shoppers into the town and to spend on the other shops in the area. I've asked this question before, but I just find it, why is it taking so long to actually get moving and actually get it's actually built? I just find it frustrating that it's taking us so long to actually get it built and up and running for the town centre. And the other thing I'd just like to comment on is it's a great shame that the town council are not supporting this financially as well, because I understand it's not our bridges, and it seems a great shame that they're not more supportive. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Baldry, do you want to make any comment on this? I suppose we should...
I'm here. Sorry.
Are we comments or questions, Leader?
Yes, I think we're at questions at the moment. Do you want to ask any questions?
No,
I have
comments.
You might do. You don't have questions?
No.
No,
Okay.
I have no questions. I have a comment to make at the appropriate
All
time.
right, thank you. Well, Councillor Bastone, would you like to move the recommendation? Or have you done so already?
I did, but I'll move it
Leader,
again.
that's been done already.
It has been moved and seconded. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, Councillor Baldry, would you like to comment then now?
Yeah, just a couple. Certainly, I agree absolutely with what Councillor Hawkins said about the lack of support from the town council, or indeed from the owners of Glanville's Mill. I think it is pretty shameful that they are not willing to make a financial contribution towards the maintenance and improvement of the two bridges, which are the vital link to get in and out of Glanville's Mill shopping centre. On the car parking questions, can I just, which are paragraph 5.5, the automatic number plate recognition, I think I fully support, and I'm glad that we're going ahead to bring the District Council's car park forward into this, which is a much better system where you pay on leaving for the amount of time you have spent in the car park. And you will also see in the report that we already have electric vehicle charging points in Ivybridge, and again from car parking. I think that is the way forward. I support the recommendations. I think Ivybridge should be welcoming this movement towards regenerating the town centre. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Or as local, sorry, leader, as locals say, they still call it a village. I should say village centre.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry. Councillor Hopwood, did you have a comment?
Yes, please, Leader.
Yes.
I think this is a really good opportunity for Ivybridge, and I note in 5.4 on page 62 the economic impact study. This was done by an independent consultant, and it's nothing but positives. If Ivybridge if this doesn't happen, this is last chance saloon for Ivybridge Town Centre for regeneration, I feel. Lots of schemes have been tried or thought up over the years, none have come to fruition, but this is a real opportunity to have Aldi come to Ivybridge, and it needs to be seen as a positive. It is needed. You read comments, I've followed residents' comments over Facebook, etc., and residents are getting quite excited with having an Aldi in Ivybridge. There seem to be so many positive comments. My disappointment is, has been said before, is the lack of willingness by the town council to put money into this scheme. And I have concerns, because we had a meeting with Ivybridge Town Council, and I felt the meeting was extremely positive, and all the councillors who attended that meeting were very upbeat about the proposals, and I would think they'll be even more upbeat now they see the consultants' report on the economic regeneration side of it. And yet the notes I read from that meeting from the town clerk, Mrs. Hughes, to me didn't reflect the meeting at all. They were less than positive, and I think that's a shame. I think that there is a lot of willingness within Ivybridge Town Council, but it needs to be reflected better. Ivybridge Town councillors were very upbeat about the proposals, but they need to realise that they need the bridge needs to be, the second bridge needs to go in. At the very least, the main bridge needs to be upgraded, and Ivybridge Town Council cannot look to this district council to do everything to regenerate Ivybridge. Ivybridge Town Council have to help themselves as well, and it's apparent that the owners at Glanville's Mill won't do a thing. I mean, they don't look after their shopping centre as it is, so they're definitely not going to put any money into a bridge. But Ivybridge Town Council need to look at, maybe getting a public works loan or something to do this bridge, and actually making this bridge happen, and making sure that there is connectivity between the Aldi and the town centre, because the consultant's report clearly says that the Aldi will bring in business into the town centre. So come on, Ivybridge Town Centre, let's have your backing financially as well as verbally. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hopwood. I would agree that this project is taking a long time, but I don't think that that's anything to do with our officers not giving it full support and trying to progress things. It is just the amount of time it takes to do all the exploration and studies necessary to make sure that the project is able to be built on the site and is financially viable. So I think we've just got to go with it. But I hope that we should be able to take a decision before Christmas at the next council meeting. Councillor Brazil, you have a question.
Chairman, can I raise a point of order, please?
You may raise a point of order.
Councillor Hopwood, in her intervention, named a person by name who has not got the opportunity here to defend herself. So I hope the naming of the clerk of Ivybridge, I think it's unfortunate it happened.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hopwood, do you want to respond to that at all?
Chairman, I was merely you saying that who the letter came from on behalf of, so I don't really see this.
It was a critical comment about the clerk of Ivybridge about the way in which she wrote the minutes, and I think that's unfortunate.
Okay, I'll retract that comment, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, a couple of questions, please. I mean, maybe I got the wrong end of the point as far as the number plate recognition scheme was, but it looked like we weren't going down that way because there were problems with local authorities doing it. And as such, I wonder if we could be given an update as to the financial costs of the new car parking arrangements to the council. That's one. And my second one is, and I maybe have alluded to it in previous conversations and debates about this, is I'm still struggling to understand why Aldi aren't building their own supermarket and why South Hams District Council is taking on all the construction risks. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bastone, would you like to field that? And if you can't, I'll ask Mr. Brooke to do it. But
well, I was going to ask Laura to.
Okay.
Laura Watton.
Is Laura with us this morning?
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she's here for the specific reason.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bastone. Yes, we can't use. I should probably put on my video. We can't use AMPR as a local authority. You're quite right. So we're currently investigating what that will mean from a cost perspective. Our initial findings are that that will be cost neutral, but we are exploring that with some independent advice, and we will bring those recommendations back to you in December for a decision.
Thank you.
Could I add something to that, Leader?
Yes, of course you can. Please do.
My opinion, honest opinion of it is that this better fits the people of Ivybridge. I think they would be happier with this system than with the AMPR.
Sorry, which system rather than AMPR?
The proposed parking system that we've put forward today.
Right, thank you. Okay.
Sorry, Leader, I disagree. I don't know what basis Councillor Bastone, how many people he's spoken to are likely to be using the car park. In general, the public much prefer the AMPR system.
Okay. Well, look, I think we don't have the answer on that anyway, and we've got time to discuss that before this report comes back to us in December.
What about Councillor Brazil's
second question? Yes. Councillor Bastone, are you coming back on that?
Could I ask Councillor Brazil to repeat the second question, please?
Yes, the second question was that why are South Hams District Council building the supermarket for Aldi and they're not building their own supermarket, and as such we take on all the construction risks.
I will pass that one to Mr. Brooke.
Thank you, Councillor Bastone. Yes, Councillor Brazil. The rationale behind it is that is essentially the long-term protection of public lands. So there's a choice that we have as to how we go forward with these sorts of regeneration projects. And it's felt that by aligning a long-term lease and therefore a long-term partner who will generate a revenue position for us, covering the borrowing and the construction, it keeps control of the public land. It grows the public asset base, and it gives us control over the car parking. And given it's a regeneration project, that's really important. But you're completely right. Of course, whilst that structure is of benefit to us in the long term, in the short term there is a construction risk, and that would need to be managed appropriately through the project. So I absolutely accept that point.
Could I follow that up with, obviously we have an example where a supermarket has built their own supermarket on our land. They pay us an annual rent for that. As far as I can see, it's very successful and makes a lot of money for this council, much more than this scheme's going to. So I'm still failing to understand why, as a council, we are taking this overall risk when the supposed benefits are. I don't see. I think the benefits are have already been illustrated when it's done the other way round.
Would you like me to respond to that?
Would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, happy to. So you're right. This is a very different financial position with the other supermarket you're referring to, and that's actually that's essentially driven by the market at the time when that deal was done. So that is a lease. It's a ground lease. So both structures are based on a lease, and that's how we generate revenue. But we're not in a position to replicate that sort of deal now because the operators that exist just basically don't accept that position. So if you want to align regeneration, you need to align it through using the right anchor tenant to deliver what we want, which is basically trips. So we want people to come in and have a wider range of shopping options, but we then want them to go into the town to spend, if 1 in 10 people do it or 1 in 100 people do it, and you get 65,000 people a year or whatever the number is, then that's a significant improvement to the local economy. And in order to do that, you've got to get, as I say, the right type of tenant, and the tenant structures, so the lease structures that are available to you with that correct type of tenant, push you in the direction of what we're doing. So we either have basically two choices. One would be to sell the land, and then we relinquish all control, which I'm not sure is the best use of public assets, or to go with the deal as we structured it now. In times gone by, other structures were available to councils, and we stand to benefit from that in the past, and we currently still do. I totally agree. But that's not an option at the current time.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Yeah, it does. I mean, obviously we weren't privy to the negotiations, but I'd be interested to know how many Aldi stores are being built for themselves and how many they're building on land that's leased.
Well, maybe we can try and get that information for you. Mr. Brooke, would it be possible to have some of that information?
Yeah, I'll see I'll talk to Aldi and see what they're prepared to share with us, share with me on that basis. It's not entirely, it's not data that's readily available, but I'm sure I can get you something, give you an indication of the kind of ratios.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, do we have any further questions, or let's move into the debate then. Has the recommendation been moved, Councillor Pastone?
Yes.
It has. Thank you.
And seconded.
And seconded. Right. Let's move into the debate then, if any is required. Executive, do you want to make any comments?
No, thank you.
Any public comments rather than questions? Sorry, any member comments, I should say, rather than questions. Well, in that case, let's vote on the recommendation. Are we all in favour of the recommendation on this report?
Yes, Leader.
Councillor Baldry.
I'm voting in favour, Leader.
That's it. Right. That's your hand up in agreement. Fine. Okay. Well, I'll take that as everybody's in favour of that, and we'll move on to item 12.
Right, Leader, just on that previous item, I found it very blurred to distinguish between questions, comments, and full debate. It all seemed to merge into one.
I apologise for that, Councillor Brazil. That is probably my chairing, which was at fault.
I think that was my fault, Keith. Sorry.
It was entirely. I'm not blaming you, Leader. It's my pleasure to blame Councillor Hawkins.
Right.
You always
Okay.
do.
Well, I'm glad I'm off the hook then. Now, look, this item, I am just looking for, if there are any questions or debate relevant to the exempt appendices, then we will need to move into part 2 for this.
Sorry,
for this
Leader,
item.
I believe the report itself is also exempt.
Part of the report is, Chairman.
I'm sorry, I think that perhaps Mr. White's comment was relevant to the last paper then, where we didn't need to move into, right, in that case.
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you very much for putting me on the straight and narrow there. So item 12, exclusion of the public and press. To consider the following resolution to exclude the public and press, that in accordance with section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following items of business in order to avoid the likely disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A to the Act. I so move. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you. Can we have